Dinner rolls look simple: flour, water, yeast, salt, a little fat. But underneath that simplicity is a very interesting system of chemistry and structure. Bread is not just cooked dough, it's a network, and the strength of the network determines whether the roll becomes soft, airy, and stretchy, or dense and disappointing. Today I want to explore something about that system while making a batch of dinner rolls. Because when you understand what's happening inside the dough, the entire baking process starts to make sense. And once you see it, you can control it. The first thing we need to understand is hydration. When flour meets water, two proteins inside the flour begins to link together. Those proteins are called glutenin and gliadin. On their own, they are just loose particles, but once water activates them and the dough is worked through kneading, they begin forming long elastic strands. Those strands create something very important: a structure. You can think of it almost like a flexible net, and that net is what eventually traps the gas produced by yeast. Without that structure, bread cannot rise properly. So kneading is not really about mixing ingredients. Kneading is about organizing those proteins into a strong elastic network. When the dough begins to feel smoother and slightly stretchy, that network is forming. Now the dough begins to rest, and resting is another step that many people underestimate. During this time, yeast becomes active. Yeast consumes simple sugars in the dough and releases carbon dioxide gas as a byproduct. Those tiny gas bubbles begin expanding inside the gluten network we just built. And this is where something interesting happens. The dough begins to inflate, not because we force air into it, but because living organisms inside the dough are producing gas. That gas slowly stretches the gluten network outwards. This is what bakers call fermentation. If the gluten structure is strong enough, the dough expands beautifully. If the structure is weak, the dough collapses. This balance between gas production and the structural strength is what defines good bread. Now, once the dough has fermented properly, it's time to divide and shape the rolls. Shaping is more important than it might seem. When we tighten the surface of the dough slightly, we help organize the gluten network again. That tension allows the rolls to hold their shape during the final rise. Now the rolls rest again. This second rest is often called proofing, and this is where the dough reaches its final expansion before baking. During proofing, yeast continues producing gas, but now the gluten network is already formed and organized. So the dough expands in a controlled way. When the rolls feel soft and slightly puffy, they are ready for the oven. Before they go in, I brush them slightly with milk. Milk does something interesting during baking. The natural sugars and proteins in milk participate in something called the Maillard reaction. That reaction is responsible for the beautiful golden color that develops on the surface of baked breads. So this simple brush of milk will help the rolls develop deeper color in the oven. Now the rolls go into the heat, and this is where the final transformation happens. Inside the oven, several things occur almost simultaneously. The yeast becomes extremely active for a short time, producing the last burst of gas. At the same time, the trapped gases expand rapidly because of the heat. This sudden expansion is called oven spring. But the dough cannot expand forever. Eventually, the heat begins setting the structure. The gluten network firms up. Starches inside the flour gelatinize, and the bread transition from soft dough into a stable structure. Now, something I like to do occasionally is add a small design element to the bake. In this case, I took a small piece of the dough and kneaded loose spirulina into it until the color develops evenly. Then I rolled that piece of dough into thin strips and braided them together. Instead of placing it on top of the rolls, I used that braid to frame the entire pan. It becomes a border around the rolls. This doesn't change the bread itself, but visually it adds a little personality to the bake. Now at this point, I will cover them and let them rest for 20 minutes. If you're in a colder climate, maybe 30 to 40 minutes would be safer for you. But I'm in Jamaica where it's hot, so I rested them for 20 minutes. After that, I removed the covering and brushed some milk on them. Now I'm preparing them for the oven, and this part is the special part that gives them that beautiful brown color, the milk on top. Now my oven should be preheated for at least 5 minutes before it's time for baking, and I bake them at 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 degrees Celsius for 20 to 25 minutes or until the top is golden. Once the rolls are finished baking, they come out with a golden surface and a soft interior. Right away, I brush them with butter. Butter melts quickly into the warm crust and add both sheen and aroma. Now comes the moment that reveals whether everything worked correctly. The tear. When the rolls pull apart easily and you see a soft, airy crumb inside, that tells you the gluten structure held the gas properly during fermentation and baking. Those small holes inside the bread are the spaces where gas bubbles expanded, and the softness comes from the balance between hydration, gluten development, and fermentation. What looks like a simple dinner roll is actually the result of a carefully balanced biological and chemical system: flour, water, yeast, time, and heat. Once you understand how those elements interact, bread becomes less mysterious and more controllable. Because baking is not just following a recipe, it's understanding the behavior of the dough. And now I would be truly happy if you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Tell me if you learned anything new in the comment section and if you would make this recipe. Bye for now.